They say hindsight is 20/20. But when you're staring at a first-degree murder charge, hindsight feels clearer. It puts you in your feelings like, damn, what if I never chose that option? You see, this case is more than about what happened between Quadajah, Carlos, and Romika. It's about what the prosecution says intended to happen. Planned, calculated, premeditated. And although the state of Illinois doesn't have to prove premeditation, I want you to know that intent is everything. Intent is what separates fear from calculation and self-defense from murder. Quadajah Johnson was charged with 6 counts of intent to murder. From the state's perspective, this wasn't just a shooting. Their theory hinges on the idea that the choice to pull a firearm, aim it, and fire it shows deliberate intent to kill or to cause serious bodily harm. And remember, Quadajah fired her weapon not once, not twice, but 3 times. And had her weapon not jammed, we don't know how many times she was planning to pull that trigger. If Quadajah wasn't concerned with hitting Carlos with a bullet, I'm sure she wouldn't have been concerned by macing or tasing him on accident. So intent is the bar that the state is trying to clear. Now here's where the weapon of choice becomes critical. We all know that a firearm is legally recognized as deadly force. Its sole purpose is to inflict lethal damage. The moment it's introduced into a confrontation, the legal states escalate right then and there. And prosecutors begin to build narratives around choices. They ask, what tool was selected? Was there time to think? Were there other options that could have been chosen? And very important in this case was the force proportional to the threat. Remember, Romika was unarmed. There's a video going around that shows an earlier altercation between Romika and her baby daddy, Carlos. During that altercation, Romika allegedly used a pair of scissors, a tool if you will, to defend herself against Carlos. Carlos struck Romika physically, which resulted in Romika getting a black eye and having her shoulder pop out of place. Did Carlos intend to unalive Romika? No. And even though she attacked him with a pair of scissors, whether it was in self-defense or not, Carlos knew that he was stronger than Romika, not just because he works out, but because he's a man. So instead of using deadly force, Carlos retaliated with the force that would get Romika away from him. We can argue that the reaction was proportionate to the force, and because a firearm was not used in that instance, they both lived to see another day. So Quadajah knows that Carlos is stronger than both she and Romika. On September 8th, he restrained Romika in a chokehold. There's no way Romika was going to be able to unalive Quadajah that day. Even if she had a weapon in her car, it wasn't with her when she was being choked up. And it wasn't with her when Quadajah fired her weapon. Repeatedly. Yet, Quadajah Johnson is claiming that deadly force was necessary on a woman that she met for the first time in her life, while she was unarmed and being restrained by a strong man, her son's father. Carlos Smith is a personal trainer at a gym. He lifts weights. There's no way he was going to let Romika harm, let alone unalive Quadajah. Self-defense requires proportional force. And what that means is that the response must match the level of danger. You heard that saying that you don't bring a gun to a fist fight? Well, that's exactly what happened on September 8th. So once again, the central question becomes, was deadly force necessary? Or was there a lesser option available? Now, I want you to imagine for a moment if instead of a firearm, a non-lethal weapon had been used. Let's say pepper spray or a taser. The pepper spray would have incapacitated Romika temporarily. A taser would have immobilized her briefly. But neither of those two options is designed to end a life. If pepper spray had been deployed and Romika Blackman survived, even if she was later arrested, there would have been a very different legal conversation. And we damn sure wouldn't be discussing first-degree murder. Because when someone chooses a non-lethal tool, it signals something different about intent. It suggests that I want to stop you so I can get away. But when someone introduces a firearm, the state can argue you were prepared for a fatal outcome. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that there was intent to kill, and I'm sure the defense is already arguing that there was fear, adrenaline, a split-second decision, and the right for Quadajah to protect herself. But if this case makes it to trial, a jury is going to be instructed to evaluate reasonableness. Would a reasonable person believe that lethal force was the only option in this case? If other tools were available, tools designed to stop rather than to kill, that question becomes harder to answer. And before y'all say, she didn't have pepper spray or a taser with her. Well, she had a gun. And she had a restraining order against Romika, so why not also purchase some mace or a taser? Why not be prepared to defend yourself with a non-lethal weapon against a woman your own size, a woman your own age, a woman you're scared of because your baby daddy told you she fights back, a mother just like you? And listen, this is where hindsight really stings, because if a non-lethal weapon had been used, Romika Blackman might still be alive today, possibly facing charges if she was the aggressor, but alive to be with her family who loves her deeply. Quadajah Johnson might be home right now, raising her child instead of preparing for trial, or making TikTok videos about everything she would never do. Two families would still be dealing with conflict, but not a permanent loss. I'm not suggesting that the weapon of choice automatically proves intent, but it absolutely does shape how the intent is going to be argued in court. When you carry a firearm, you don't just carry protection. You carry the burden of proving that lethal force was necessary. It's not enough to say I felt threatened, because the law responds with, was killing the only reasonable option? And that's where the prosecution's theory gains traction. They don't have to prove what Quadajah felt. They have to convince a jury that her actions, the decision to use a deadly weapon, demonstrate intent beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a much steeper hill for the defense to climb. People don't always choose the option with the least permanent consequence. They choose the option that feels most powerful in the moment. So the real question here is, does choosing a lethal weapon automatically raise the bar for proving self-defense? And if non-lethal options were available, does that make the state's argument about intent stronger? Oh, hindsight may be 20/20, but in a courtroom, it's not hindsight that matters. It's how a jury interprets the choices made in those few irreversible seconds. And remember, Quadajah did actually pause before firing a second time. But something or someone inside her head said, do it again. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Let me know your thoughts about what you believe Quadajah intended on September 8th. Then meet me in the comments. We can continue the conversation there.